suspense, you kind of understand what you're.
Yeah, that's my only concern. I mean, if it's a little treetop and the distance, then I don't have a problem with it. I just don't want to be entertaining and go down Academy Sports Lane in the yard. So that's my only concern. I mean, as long as it's not going to be an eyesore, I'm through with it. I have no problem about making no money.
Well, we appreciate you coming out.
This is an internally lit sign, correct?
Yes.
So there's no spotlights on it. So you'll probably see it, but it won't be like a glare, I would think. Huge hardship.
It's only 19 feet wide.
So it's like the big of the car. It's way up.
I guess it's a billboard.
Is there anyone else here that has any concerns regarding this sign? Mr. Martin, Mr.
I have a question. Which way will the sign turn? That can make all the difference.
I need you to come forward.
I'm sorry.
State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Alan Davis, Lock Laurel Road. And I understand this man's plight. And the direction of the sign turn would make all the difference in the world. If it's a four-sided sign, it would line it. If it's a two-sided sign that's facing north and south, he wouldn't see it. Or if it's facing east and west, he would see it. So that would be the determination for y'all to look into. I'm sorry. But that's something to think about, okay?
Thank you.
Maybe there's something that can tell you which way it's going to turn. Okay?
Unfortunately, I imagine it's probably going to be facing the interstate, which puts the backside directly towards his house.
Actually, I was thinking north and south, actually.
Would it? Okay. Okay.
That's got to be a determining factor.
That's going to be a little bit parallel with 75.
Thank you.
North and south would be.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicant or staff? If no, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that the variance be granted based on the conditions outlined by staff. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? Obviously not. Unanimously. I'm showing y'all what to do. Thank you, Mr. Moser. Tell your client that we welcome him to Valdosta. Okay, the next case is APP-2012-06 for Brooks and Almaden, Gander Mountain.
Yes, sir. This is the next item on your agenda. It is very similar. It's the same two code sections within the sign regulations chapter of the LDR that they're seeking variance from. This is a property that is not too far away. It's the Gander Mountain site, which is currently under construction. It is at 278 Norman Drive, which is directly behind the Cheddar's Restaurant, between the Walmart and the Hampton Inn. You should see it on the map. Still highway commercial zoning, very much a commercial area. The site plan, there we go. Site plan. Area, excuse me, I'm sorry. And there you can see the Walmart store, the Hampton Inn, the Rainwater Conference Center, Cheddar's. This is while it was still under construction. This was taken a couple of years ago. And just for reference, the Academy store is right over here. This is River Street and Norman Drive right there. This property is not quite as big as the last one. It's about 6.5 acres that they're building on behind Cheddar's. And referring to last month's package, which has a little bit more of the details. You've seen that same comparison chart on the front page. The little difference here is that Gander Mountain is not quite as big as the Academy Sports Building, but it does sit a lot further back off the road, 675 feet from the front wall to Norman Drive. That's a little bit further behind off of the road than even the Walmart next door. The same comparables are there, Sam's Club, up the street, of course, their wall signage complies. The Walmart next door, I guess is the closest comparison. They were granted a variance back in 2004 for increased wall signage. Well, the Walmart has 655 feet of building facades, so they're a very large wall, and so they got some relief. about 458 square foot of signage that they have. But in Walmart's case, it is spread out over several signs. The main signs are not all that big. And then by comparison to the Walmart on the other side of town, similar size store, not as far back off the road, but they have a lot less wall signage. Interesting to note too, about 2 years ago, both Walmarts and Sam's went through and redid all of their signage, replaced all the sign panels. No variances were required or requested at that time. So they just continued to comply with the code or the variance that was granted 8 years ago. And here again, Mr. Chairman, this is two different types of requests. I asked recommendations a little bit different on the two of them. I would recommend that we would consider them one at a time.
Okay.
The wall signage, last month, this is looking at this month's addendum packet. They were originally requesting almost 500 square feet of wall signage, and that was spread over 3 signs. It was the main sign, which is the Gander Mountain, and then what we call the Goose logo, which is the corporate logo above it. And then off to the side, a separate sign for Gun World, which I think is one of the brands that they carry. And you see the comparisons where they've gone from nearly 500 down to 337. The main sign itself is now at 199 square feet, which is below the code requirement if we were to take that sign by itself. If you add in the Goose logo, then they're up around 262, 263 square feet, which even if that was all that they were doing on the main facade, we could review it administratively. Given the great distance on Fulton Drive, I think staff would approve that. The Gun World is what's putting it over the top. Kind of like Academy, it was their logo signs. In this case, it's a separate sign that they are proposing to have. On the rear, remember that they're allowed up to a maximum of 250 square feet per facade. They were originally proposing 247 on the rear wall, which needed no variance. That complies with code. This is the wall facing the interstate. And they're proposing to reduce that even a little bit more to help compensate, I think, for some of the extra signage on the front wall. So the total signage with both have gone from 744 down to 576, whereas normally they would be allowed 500 as a matter of code. So they're very close to code requirements. And just like we had stated in the previous request, we're very reluctant to recommend approval of any sign variances when there's no obvious hardship. In their case, they have a little bit stronger argument for wall signage relief than I think even Academy. It's a similar size building, but they are way off of Norman Drive. They're more than 600 feet, which is unlike some of the other big box retails that are along Norman Drive. So they have a little bit different situation there. So with the wall signage, we're recommending approval with the 2 conditions. The first one being wall signs for the front facade shall be approved with increased signage area based on the revised signage schematic drawings, which are there in your packet, with maximum area allocations as follows. First is the main wall sign with the Goose logo, 264 square feet. Gun World and other wall signs together requiring a permit at 75 square feet. These are rounded up from the numbers that they've given us. And number 2, wall signs for the rear facade shall be limited to a maximum total of 239 square feet. Wall signs for all other walls requiring a permit shall be incidental for purposes of labeling, loading docks, and doorways, and shall be limited to no more than 25 square feet cumulative on each wall. Same thing that we recommended with the cabin. Any questions on this one so far?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm driving down Norman Drive and I'm looking for the Gander Mountain. Is it going to be a mystery where it is? It's not going to be a mystery where it is.
And I think most of Valdosta already knows where it is. Word travels fast in our town.
But even if I'm visiting from out of town, come on the interstate and I know there's a Gander Mountain and it says on Norman Drive and I drive down the road, I'm going to be able to find it, right?
I would hope
I mean,
so.
when I drove down Norman Drive, I could tell where it was going to be. You know, somebody from out of town, they're going to be able to find where it is, right?
It should.
I just
Yes,
would like
well,
to know what
Making
Gander Mountain
assumptions
is.
about people's intelligence and ability to find things.
Well, and keep in mind,
Not always good.
okay, so go back to the site plan. The aerial, maybe.
I mean, is it going to be tricky because it's behind Cheddar's?
Well, keep in mind there's another vacant lot in front of them. There's Cheddar's, which blocks part of their vision. And then there's a vacant parcel here that has yet to be built upon. So we don't know what is going to be there. So there's a fairly narrow view shed, either through the main entrance or diagonally across the Walmart parking lot.
I just would like
Yes.
to know what Gander Mountain is. What is that?
It is another sporting goods store. They are different specialties. I mean, everyone has questioned why we're having two of these national retail chains, which aren't in this area yet, and so therefore, as locals, don't know a whole lot about them, except for maybe if we travel. But they are not quite the same variety of products. Gander Mountain is more of the outdoors, hunting and fishing. Their representative is here. I'm sure he'll be glad to tell you all about them. Academy Sports deals more with athletics, so they're a little bit different. And apparently they don't mind being within a quarter mile of each other.
Okay. No other questions for Matt? Is there a representative from Gander Mountain who'd like to tell us something new?
Hi, Nick Casino with Brooks and Hamden, as you mentioned, Gander Mountain representative. I don't have a lot new to add, just a little bit more. As Matt mentioned, Gander Mountain is predominantly focused on outdoors activities, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, that type of thing. One of the things they're doing nationally is rebranding or co-branding some of their stores with this Gun World concept, and that is because they are actually the nation's largest retailer of firearms. Is a large portion of their business. One of the reasons they chose to go with their larger prototype footprint here in Valdosta is because of the strong hunting factor. And so they will have an expanded gun selection and everything that goes along with guns, archery targets and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the reason for the additional little Gun World sign. Other than that, we do sit just a heck of a long ways from a retail perspective from our front access road of Norman Drive. As Matt mentioned, we're 670 feet back. The Walmart in that picture is at about 450 as a matter of perspective. And then other than that, if there's any questions.
Any questions? Is there anyone here today who'd like to speak in opposition of this request? All right. Any contact with your office?
No, sir, no contact.
Board have any discussion? Any motion?
Motion. We accept the recommendations of variance based on item, staff recommendation 1 and 2.
And this is just wall sign?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Motion and second. All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimously. Once again, congratulations.
Can we still go to the schematic? Hold on, Chair, I get some exercise this way. Schematic surveys. Right, their second variance request, just like Academy Sports, has to do with high-rise identification sign. And just like Academy Sports, there's no issue with the height or the area of the sign, it is simply the location. But theirs is a little different. They are actually proposing to put theirs in the rear yard setback area, which is along I-75. The problem is there's a spacing requirement. Where the minimum spacing is 500 feet from any other high-rise identification sign. And in their case, this is I-75, this is Norman Drive out here, so this is south. There is an existing sign for Hampton Inn here, and 500 feet away is an existing sign for Walmart. Okay, and they are right in between. They're requesting to put theirs approximately in the middle, and therefore approximately 250 feet from either high-rise sign instead of the required 500. Just like we talked about before, the purpose of the high-rise identification sign regs is to get them off of the local street and up, however you can't see them, but also 500 feet apart, just I think to help protect the city skyline and clutter. I met with the applicants out on the site on Friday. We did a test where they raised, actually it was 2 sheets of plywood that were painted red and stuck together, lifted up on a crane. We looked at some different locations within the site and different heights, and then drove up and down the interstate and spent a little bit of time looking at it. What that sort of, I think, proved to both of us is that it needs to be at least 120 feet in the air to be effective, which is the same height as the Hampton Inn sign. But also what we ran into, is the sign at these different heights and different locations begins to either be blocked by these two other signs, the Hampton or the Walmart, or is blocking them. And I think to the applicant's credit, we were really looking for a place so it would not block their neighbors. But it was a little hard to find a good location. If Tracy will go back to that. Circles, there we go. This is a schematic that was given to us by the applicant where they took the existing signs and drew 500-foot radius circles around each of them to kind of see how much of their property is included in that 500. One of the things I was thinking about was this area right in here. Cheddar's, because of where they're located, if they wanted to, they could do a high-rise sign in their rear yard, right back here, as a matter of right. Meets all the code requirements as long as it's up high enough and not too big. And I thought, well, they've been there a year and a half, have not done that yet. Perhaps Gander could put one in the same general area or somewhere else nearby, and maybe not be exactly 500 feet or more from the signs, but close. So we explored that possibility. One of the test sites was in this general area. We looked at it back on Friday. It's obviously not quite as effective as along the interstate. There's different pros and cons. And Mr. Messina has got some opinions about that. But staff is of the opinion this area is still plausible, perhaps not as advantageous as the interstate. We would much rather see a minor variance to the 500-foot spacing requirement back here than we would a 50% variance along the interstate. Also back here, you don't have quite the same issue of blocking neighboring signs or being blocked by them as long as you're high enough. Now some of the issues here, of course, you're further from the interstate, so you have to look a little bit to the left or the right, but not too much of an angle. But you've got to be high enough to be above the trees. There's a large light oak here, and then a 4-story hotel, which at 100+ feet, you're definitely up above the hotel. But you want to be up high enough so you're going to be seen with the other signs. So in this case, staff could not find any justification for this magnitude of a variance here at 50% of the code requirement. So we're recommending denial of this one.
What is the intent of the sign regulation as it regards high-rise identification?
High-rise identification signs first and foremost get separated from the local street system, so it's not part of the signage going down a local street like Marvin Drive.
Satisfy that.
But the 500-foot radius is to get them far enough apart from each other, one, so you don't have the issue of them blocking view of each other, and you don't pollute your skyline with lots of tall signs up in the
What
air.
pollutes it more, putting them, sprinkling them evenly across the landscape and putting them all in one place?
Depends if you're looking at the one place or if you're looking at the broad area. But that's an interesting question.
That's why I asked.
The 500-foot number, when this was written 20 years ago, came from the spacing between billboards along the interstate. There's a visual spacing that's required by Georgia DOT. I think that's where the 500-foot number came from, as opposed to 400 or 300 or 600. That's where the 500 is from. And keep in mind, this is just along what we call the I-75 corridor, which is every property within 1,500 feet of the interstate is allowed to have these. These are extra signage. It does not get counted in the grand total for freestanding signage. It's over and above any other signage that you're allowed to have for the property.
Oh, vacant adjacent lots. What else do we have there? There's a good bit of
This,
vacancy down that.
well, on this side of Norman Drive, this I think is the last one. Just to give you some of the history of it too, not all of these high-rise signs along here went up at the same time. The Conference Center was built first. They've got one down here. Hampton Inn was the next significant one. Theirs is in their back corner, which is where they had to go because that's the rear yard of their property, and it was along the interstate. And it met the spacing requirement from the Conference Center. Next in line was Sam's. Remember, it was built next. And so their sign is up here, and then along came Walmart. And Walmart had a choice pretty much along the southern 2/3 of their property to place their signs. And as you can see, the back of their building is pretty tight along the interstate. And I really think they just chose to go down here in the corner, one, because it met the 500-foot spacing from Hampton Inn, and it would block their truck driveway. just the convenient location. And this property itself is not quite 500 feet wide, it's 470 feet or something like that. So it would not have been eligible under the 500-foot spacing anyway. As far as signs right along Highland, they'd have to be further back off to get 500 feet away from Hampton and so. So I think that's why Walmart went here with their sign. But they could have gone up here, but I think interfered with their own site. A little closer to the north, it would have been within 500 feet of the Sam sign, and therefore a problem that way. But as far as I-75 frontage parcels, this is the last one in this area between the two main exits.
Do you have anything to add?
Yes, please. I don't believe this is in your packet. We have absolutely no doubt that this is exactly what the city was trying to prevent when they enacted this rule. However, as it's currently written with the 500-foot separation requirement, it makes no provision for being basically, if you're first in, good for you. If you're next, sorry. There's
kind of squeezed out.
If you could, Tracy, could you please go back to the one with the two circles? Granted, Cheddar's has not placed a rear yard sign along the rear of their property. If we place one, not only would they not be able to have a high-rise sign, the vacant property next to them would not be able to have, to the south of them would be able to have one. Neither would the property, tiny little out parcel that sits along Norman Drive. So, if we were to think that that was a good idea, which we don't for other reasons, we would be effectively preventing 3 future developments from the ability to have a high-rise sign. The 500-foot spacing that was referenced from the Georgia DOT billboard code, these are not billboards. They're nothing like a billboard. Their primary purpose is to draw attention to the business that's near the interstate. That's why all of the major hotels